Are you serious? Are you serious? Guys, we want to talk a little bit about some of those things going on. I want to thank you for being a partner with me on Patreon. Thank you so much for helping us. We want to break down some very interesting information for you today. ESP. ESP is the federal government using ESP to use mind control over the population. Not just the United States, but other nations of the world. Well, we went and did some digging, as we love to do. And here's what we found so far. And I think this is an extraordinary report. Has to be brought forward. First of all, there has been some declassified documents finally been released, but you're going to be shocked when I share them with you. Number one, here's what ESP, a little bit about ESP. ESP involves the reception of information of not gained through or recognized senses and not inferred from experience. The term was coined by a German psychologist researcher, Rudolf Tischner. It was adopted by Duke University psychologist J.B. Rhine to denote psychic abilities such as telepathy and clairvoyance, and their transtemporal operation as precognitive or retrocognitive. ESP is also sometimes casually referred to as the sixth sense, gut intuition or instinct, a hunch. The term implies acquisition of information by means external to the basic limiting assumptions of science, such as the organisms can only receive information from the past or to the present from your five main senses, okay? And that would be hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touch. A sixth sense. Well, there was a request from the to acquire information from the Information Act, okay? And here's what we found out. The Air Force denial of ESP records. On April the 1st, 2015, there was a file formed for the Freedom of Information Act request to the Defense Intelligence Agency for records relating to the ESP and the course of processing that request. The Department of Intelligence found that the United States Air Force records had been forwarded them to the agency for review and released. The letter was sent and states that they are classified and are unable to be released. Not one piece of paper from the United States Air Force on their ESP training and their ESP secretive program, not one piece of paper would even be released to give us any information on what they do with ESP. So the Central Intelligence Agency, was the CIA, also denial of releasing any ESP records. On September 24, 2014, a Freedom of Information Act request was made. The Defense Intelligence Agency for records relating to ESP. In the course of processing that request, the Department of Intelligence Agency found that the CIA records that they were not to be released. The letter was sent and states that they are all classified and unable to be released. We know for sure that the U.S. government, that the United States Air Force and the CIA uses an ESP program, and they have for 50 years, folks. But we're not even allowed to see one sheet of paper from that request. Well, I went ahead and continued to do some digging. And I did find some documents that had been declassified back in 1966 from the Department of Defense. These were once secret documents. They are now declassified, so I can share them with you. And let me share with you what I have found. And let me just, from 1966, I want to make sure I want to read the right pages because I don't want to just read stuff that just mumbo jumbo, okay? So let me get right to it. There's 4 documents were actually found. Most of them tell you about all the names of all the doctors involved, okay? But here's what we found out. The CIA was willing to admit what the Soviets are doing on ESP, since they aren't going to tell us what the Americans are doing, okay? And here's what the Soviets are doing. In the following possibilities of using ESP, are they being considered by the Soviets? This was from 1966. Some Soviet scientists considered that ESP could be accomplished with the help of a still unknown type of energy or a factor inherent only to the highest form of development of matter, the substance and structure of the brain. The discovery of this type of energy or factor would be the equivalent of the discovery of an atomic energy. Talking about the brain. Some of these scientists feel that an unknown energy, possibly a kind similar to gravity or to even to neutrinos, is involved. They also feel that in the future, machines on the moon or in the ocean will be controlled by thought. Also, such ideals are not mere idle speculation. This type of energy is considered seriously by such diverse minds as Soviet doctors and French scientists and philosophers also. And experiments have been carried out by Julio Eisenbud, MD, even in the United States, and other doctors in Canada. And they are to substantiate the theory that this energy does exist, that it does exist. Matter of fact, doctors from Director of Biotechnology and Human Research of ESP offices in Advanced Research and Technology in the United States have stated that the 14th Congress of the International Astronomical Federation of 1963, the Soviets, are giving top priority toward the study of electromagnetic communication between living organisms under their named program. In other words, telepathically carrying a conversation. A report, here's what's real important. A report from November of 1962 states that from the talks of a prominent scientist, one could gather that the research in the field of telepathy is being conducted from the point of view of defense quite actively, particularly in the problem of transmission of information and in the problem of guiding the movement of intercontinental rockets using pigeons. This would be an emergency measure to counter the jamming and the intentional or unintentional jamming of rockets. So presumably, the transmission of information mentioned in paragraph 2 above could also be concerned with the transmission of Soviet agent communications or the intercept of Western defense information. Thought control is another area in which the Soviets are trying to utilize telepathy. Many modern psychologists and psychiatrists believe that the unconsciousness of man, which would be ESP, which is how ESP operates, provides part of the information which is used by men to make decisions or form opinions. The Soviets would like to influence that unconsciousness, filling it with information, and thus influence world attitudes as well as those of their own citizens. And this was stated by one of their leading psychiatrists and involved a system of using telepathy in education, not only for importing knowledge, but also from transforming characters. They also states that the Soviets have intended these Pavlovian experiments on individual humans are also being used on groups of people and even to societies. There are They are utilizing electronic computers in their experiments at giving them control of entire populations. This is your strong delusion in the Bible that's coming. Recent developments in Soviet ESP research includes a successful telepathy transmission of 12 out of 25 pictures. Moscow did, 6 of which were unsatisfactorily received. And so 3 of them were very good. All right. A successful telepathy experiment in which the hypnotized subject was made to fall asleep or awaken 4 out of 5 times. And in the subconscious mind, we're able to transmit 12 out of 25 different pictures into the human psyche. This was 1962. Not only do they want to be able to teach people how to communicate telepathically between each other by sending knowledge and receiving knowledge, but they want to be able to literally change the subconscious mind of societies while they are sleeping by using telepathic communication of ESP, thus changing people's entire opinions and characteristics and understandings and even your moral values. Certainly to change people's ability to how they think about things in society. 1962. So where are we today? Is ESP being used upon massive amounts of population, maybe through your phones, social media? I'm not just talking about subliminal messages now. I'm talking about while you're sleeping. Are they sending telepathic ideology to try to reshape the minds? You have to wonder about this super socialistic mentality that's rising up all of a sudden simultaneously, not only in America, but globally. Is this being affected by some kind of ESP? And when the Bible talks about a strong delusion in the era of the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians 2, is that strong delusion not just simply Project Bluebeam or some type of 3D imaging or some kind of social engineering, but could it be while we sleep that our subconscious mind and soul is being reshaped by extra sensory perception? And is this why we must have the Holy Ghost, the Spirit of God in our life, to divinely protect us from the strong delusion to believe a lie and be damned? How important is it to have Christ in your life in these last days? Folks, this is a Patreon video. This is extremely sensitive information, and this is why this video cannot air out there on YouTube. Because I'm challenging the new world order. Am I unlocking some of the secrets of the beast? I'll be back with more. Thank you for being a partner with me on Patreon.